Hi, my name is Isabella Gomez, and today I will be talking about Cesare Lombroso and his theory on criminal traits. Just to kind of give a background as to who he was an individual that was in the criminology field and often did publish his theories regarding specific traits that had to do with individuals that were in his studies. So, just to kind of give a background as to what his theory is, so he believed that there were biological characteristics of an individual that would determine the likelihood of whether or not they would commit crime or not. And so, just to kind of give like an idea of how he gathered all of this information, he would do a recorded study of individuals that have committed crimes, and he would take their pictures and just kind of look at all of the different traits that they had, whether it was physical traits or it was psychological traits. And he would take note of these things and kind of put them all together to create these theories. And so he did publish two pieces of work in his life. One of them was The Criminal Man, and this had to do with specific traits of criminal men, and this had to do with their biological, so their physical appearance, and then their psychological traits, so anything that has to do with mental disorders or any type of behavioral differences. He took note of those. So for physical differences, some of the ones that he identified were large jaws, insensitivity to pain, and thick and curly hair. And I do have my notes off to the side here, so I will be looking at those as well throughout this video. Some psychological traits that were noted were that they were often vain and impulsive, they had moral insensitivity, and they also had lack of awareness. And the other piece of work that he did publish was The Delinquent Woman, the Prostitute, and the Normal Woman, where he focused on the traits of these women that have committed crimes, and he took note of these as well, just as he did for the men. And so in this piece of work, he identified that, or some of his observations were, that some female-born criminals and prostitutes have more sexual sensitivity than normal women, and that female criminals have an excess of male characteristics. And what he means by this is that the females that are often, or that were recorded in his study, that have committed crimes often had more male characteristics or more masculine features in comparison to women that have not been convicted of a crime. And so he took note of that, and that's why he stated that some of these female criminals have an excess of male characteristics, as I just said. And so just kind of going into what sets apart criminals from the rest of the population. So by the rest of the population, that would be individuals that have not been convicted of a crime or have not broken any laws. So something that I believe really sets apart individuals that have and have not committed a crime is the environment and that they were raised in, and then also their childhood or like their upbringing. And some of those things have to do with like either early exposure to violence, and then also just the fact that if they were exposed to violence in their younger like years, like in their childhood, and then also teenage years, especially whenever people can be a little bit more impulsive with the things that they do, since they are gaining more and more like awareness of the amount of control that they have in their life. This often can lead to crimes insensitivity or desensitivity, and that can really just push the person to not be afraid of any type of repercussion that comes to them whenever they do break a crime or they do commit a crime. Another thing that has to do with the childhood aspect specifically would be absent parents or no guidance or no role models. And this just means that, some kids that if they didn't really have present parents, whether it be they weren't present physically or they weren't like present emotionally, this does not give the child the proper like structure that they need going into their teenage and adulthood, because without these like very crucial building blocks, they don't have the type of rational thinking that most like individuals would have. Another thing that can really set apart criminals from the rest, just based on a general like consensus of individuals that have been convicted of like very serious crimes, for example, is psychological and behavioral differences. And so although this doesn't necessarily define someone as a criminal, because everyone, or not everyone, it's very common for individuals to have these types of differences, and that doesn't make them a criminal. It's just the amount of, there's a difference between the normal person, and then also these individuals with mental disorders, for example, with their rational decision making. They can either, like specifically for, let's say, someone with BPD, they would have less rational thoughts because of the fact that they're often overtaken by their emotions, and they don't really lead with they don't really think about what they're going to do before they do something. So they just are kind of careless towards the fact that they might be convicted of something, and they don't care about the repercussions, as I said before. And so just basically what do I think is that I would say the last two things that I did say, mainly the childhood and just like their upbringing, just basically everything that could possibly shape them up until their adulthood is very crucial in determining the difference between a criminal and just a normal person that hasn't committed a crime. So that's what I think, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your time.